when I look at this individual, and I'm going to get each of your individual thoughts on it, this dude inspires a lot of hate in my heart. I will admit I want to see him publicly executed. Go ahead and give him his due process, but I'm all about, I mean, can I be frank? I want this guy to burn. I'm not going to hide it. I know that's not like the most Christian thing to say, and that's where I struggle, because this guy and this kind of stuff, as I had said, this is my Nineveh. Thoughts?
It's one of the hardest parts, I think, about being a Christian, is understanding that it would be powerful and loving for this guy to go from this moment to redemption, and that's what we should want. And I think that it's easy to say that, and easy to say that's the path that we're supposed to take.
It's easy to say, look at Saul of Tarsus and say that, but it's different, when
it's the same thing when Osama bin Laden died or was killed. I was out in the streets celebrating, and to this day I
ran through my neighborhood with a flag.
Right.
I'm not going to lie.
Every time.
And I played Team America from South Park. I'm not lying. I played that, and I ran through my neighborhood with a flag at 11:45 at night.
I did take a moment that day to realize how, if my job as a Christian is to be more Christ-like, then I did have to reflect on the fact that God would be sad that Osama bin Laden didn't come to him.
Oh gosh, yeah. See, I'm not ready to go there.
And that as such, it's my responsibility to also be sad that God didn't come to him.
I like Stephen's smirk in the little window. Stephen.
Yeah, listen, I'm not smirking at the event, but I think I'm pretty Christ-like in that I put tax collectors in the same playing field as prostitutes, and I think it's time every now and then to go throw over the temple. But I do think, listen, that Ben is right, and this guy can be redeemed in the eyes of the Lord. If you're going to talk about being a Christian, absolutely, there are people on death row who can be, but
can we wait though? Can we get a rain check?
Yeah, I know. I mean, it'll happen on God's time, but it doesn't change in the eyes of the law. And in order to be consistent, I feel it's important. I wrote a piece on this today. The common thread between public shootings or terrorism is not race, despite what the race baiters are already saying. It is godlessness. Now, I put the 9/11 hijackers in that same category as godlessness, meaning a lack of humanity. The human face should reflect God's face, which is what we understand as Christians. Obviously, that's the ideal, and we fall short. So it's important to note that, and I do think that in order to be consistent, considering how very, very harsh I've been with ISIS, I have no problem calling this guy a terrorist if he was out trying to kill black people. Punishment, absolutely. Terrorist, jackass, and he can still be redeemed in the eyes of the Lord.
I know Jason's going to agree with me on the rain check, aren't you?
I am, because that's the human reaction.
I know,
is to do that.
Let's leave it there, right?
But here comes the but of the conscience. I do fall into the camp of I did do the same thing with someone like bin Laden, and I'm feeling the same way about this guy right now. But there was a moment that comes to you where you do, like, there's something inside of you, I think, as a Christian, where you say, cheering the death of somebody who is, even if they're so evil, I think it is what Ben said, knowing that he had no chance to be redeemed or come to God, even if he wouldn't. I think that's hard to, just deep down. Sometimes it's very deep, and it's probably going to be very deep for this case, but something in there just makes you feel a little bit like, should we be clapping, or should we be sad for the victims and sad that this guy, at the end of the day, probably is going to burn in hell for eternity?
Right.
Well, there's a reason God's God and we're not.
Right.
Exactly.
Here's a question. How do you, as a parent, give a pistol? If all of these if the media reports are accurate, the uncle had said that the father had given the son a pistol. He already has 2 charges. He's a druggie. He apparently was a pill popper. He used Xanax. It seems to me, if this is
there does exist a thing called a irresponsible gun owner, and sometimes people are irresponsible with their guns and their firearms. And if this kid did have problems and they knew, and he had charges and everything else, even if they couldn't maybe see it coming, I mean, you have to really analyze. Should I be giving this person a gun?
Right.
Should he be left unsupervised with a gun? Sometimes the answer is no. And it's not about laws, it's about just responsibility in your own households and in your own lives.